invites to finish it.
Mau direkod sekarang dulu.
Hello. Yohda. RD team.
Hello, Majid.
Hello, Dr. Beidaghi, right?
Yes.
I'm RD team from mechanical engineering. Nice to meet you.
I'm studying technology.
Oh, okay. Oh, thank you. Auburn.
Yes.
Is it the Samuel-Jin School of Engineering? Is it? That's it.
Samuel-Jin,
Yeah.
Ah,
Yes.
okay.
Yeah.
My advisor is there. This Lorenzo Kremansky.
Oh.
Lorenzo Kremansky.
Oh, he just came like
Yes, he
2
moved.
years ago.
Yeah, he moved from
I'm in the same department.
Okay, yeah. I worked with him in my PhD.
In Oklahoma?
Oklahoma State University.
Okay.
So welcome to Indonesia. How long you been
I can do on Sunday.
on Sunday? Okay. And you also the
I'm from Sunday.
Sunday.
I've been in Jakarta for many days.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Very
That's good. Lombok is beautiful, but now we have the earthquake.
Yeah.
But it's actually really beautiful.
I visited twice there.
Oh, you went there?
Yes,
In 2015? Was it? No?
Maybe
We have
QIR.
Yeah, we have
Yes,
QIR.
Yes, QIR. And also the Beidaghi conference there. But it's a very beautiful island.
It is.
Much better than life.
It is, yeah.
Very rich in resources.
Okay.
And not too
Mountains
crowded.
and road.
Not too crowded.
Not
as
crowded.
that.
Very relaxed.
We will have the next QIR, is an international conference in Padang.
Sumatra.
Sumatra is also beautiful. It will be in
Yeah.
Yes. Dr.
I'm planning to go to Sumatra this Sunday.
Which part?
One national park.
Oh.
So then I try to find live animals there.
Oh, okay. Taman Nasional Kerinci. How far?
This is 3 hours
By car from Jakarta?
From Medan.
From Medan?
Oh, that's
Sumatra.
Hey. Challenging.
I'll be your moderator.
I have changed
Okay, no problem. You can. Anyway, we will broadcast this one live.
broadcast.
And also see that. So we can. Maybe there are no because no participants today because now it's holiday actually. With this one. Okay.
Yes. I meet him.
Holiday.
It's actually a holiday now. They went to Bangkok. They're on vacation.
Since sightseeing.
But I was coming to the dinner with your family.
One hour by flight.
Oh.
There's a province in Sumatra.
I don't have anything printed, but will introduce myself. Yeah? Okay. Because I don't have anything to do with it.
Yeah, I forgot. Yeah, she was asking me before that I forgot.
Okay. Itu dari kantor apa?
Lama ternyata.
US.
US.
Yeah.
I'm from Manchester University.
Oh, you still Oh.
Now I'm working at the
Electrical engineering. Okay. Nice to meet you. Majid. Nice to meet you. Okay.
Okay. Good afternoon, all. Thank you for all participants that have come to our workshop. This workshop is held by Smart City and FTOP and Workhouse Professor. Before we start the workshop, may I ask you to pray? Pray, please. Okay. Before we start the workshop, maybe I will invite Mr. Nofrijan Sofyan to send some speeches for Mr. Nofrijan Sofyan.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good afternoon, everybody. Today we have our three speakers, Professor Heri, Hermansyah, Professor Masafumi Yohda from Biotechnology and Life Science of the University of Agriculture and Technology, and our third speaker, Professor Majid Beidaghi, our university. This workshop is actually hosted and co-hosted by three different events. USA from Smart City, we have USA from Shera project, and then we have world-class professor from from Ministry of Research and Technology and Higher Education, providing funding for Professor Yohda, Professor Beidaghi, to come here. And thank you very much for your coming. We are honored to have you here, and hopefully we could share some in your expert how to write a quality journal, a good journal. Yeah. Our problem is usually in writing the journal. Yeah. Maybe you have a lot of data and don't know what to do with the data. You have something to tell the readers, and actually you don't know how to bring it the correct way. So again, I don't have what to say. So maybe also we don't have so many attendees right now because most of the people go for they say capacity building. That actually is just for refreshing. But again, we have will be online, so the students later can watch the presentation, and hopefully they will get something out of this presentation. Again, thank you very much, and enjoy for the attendees and maybe from the online viewers. Hopefully you will get the chance how to write good and quality. Okay? Thank you very much, and Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you very much for Mr. Nofrijan for the speeches. And now let me invite Mr. Khairul Hidayah as our moderator today. Mr. Khairul Hidayah.
Okay, thank you very much, Nadia. Let me just sit down here. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for coming in this journal writing session for international publication. We have, as Professor Nofrijan said, we have three speakers right now today, which is Professor Heri Hermansyah, he will open this session, the first one, and the second is we have a distinguished speaker here, Professor Masafumi Yohda, yeah, from Tokyo University of Agriculture and Technology. And the last but not least is Professor Majid will be giving maybe some tips and trick how to write a journal, choosing the right journal and communication with reviewer. So the first speaker is Professor Heri Hermansyah. Professor Heri the brief profile of Professor Heri will be explained by himself in his presentation. But a brief overview about Professor Heri is one of our youngest maybe professor in our university. He was I'm not wrong, it's like 5 years ago. When he was like 37 years old to get some position, possible position. And he's very active also, and now he is a director of Directorate Research and Community Engagement at the University of Indonesia. And also, he's also the team leader or the head of Smart City project provided by USAID. That today, USAID is one of our sponsor today to host this event. So without further ado, I would like to invite Professor Heri. Please make a big applause.
Coba laptopnya digeser bisa.
Ada lagi seru lagi, Pak. Audiensnya yang digeser ya. Mbak, itu ada Mas ya. Ini bisa.
Good afternoon. Thank you very much for your coming. Professor Yohda, welcome again to our campus. Yeah, we already have long duration. Yeah. And Dr. Majid also welcomes, and I hope this will be the beginning for also long relation between our university and your university, between our faculty members, and you and your groups in your field. And welcome to audience. Thank you to Pak Novijon who already arranged everything in this WCP program, and Pak Hairul from Smart City, Pak Wahidin, and Pak Ardi. Thank you very much for your support. Today, I'm going to deliver about research data of Universitas Indonesia. Data is something difficult. Every time we need data, every time we must looking for. Yeah. If we have institutional assessment or any data to submit to our government, we always looking for the data. Now, by technology, we have now famous in ICT, for example, big data, and research data also now compiled in many research database. Now we have, for example, many publisher, and then yeah, this is such as a database capitalism. Yeah. So we are tight, but at least the data in that database is useful for us to make self-evaluation for our university, for our researcher, so we know our baseline at this time. So by using the research data in this database, we try to make a landscape, a research landscape of our university. So by using this evidence, this data, so we, then we make a program how to reach our target from this baseline. Okay. Okay. Before that, I would like to introduce myself. I graduated from Tohoku University, Japan, Chemical Engineering on 2006, and then I returned on 2006 to Department of Chemical Engineering, and then become director of services from Gas Petrochemical Engineering from 2007, and then we established Bioprocess Engineering in 2008, and I become head of the study program. And then in 2014, in 2016, I was associate dean in this Faculty of Engineering for student, alumni, venture, and cooperation. And then starting 2016, I moved to university level as a director of research and community engagement. So by collecting the quantitative data, and then we have expert opinion or expert judgment, so we can make strategic planning for research. And then here by design the strategy so that we enable to do research, doing research, and then we expect research outcome. So we must unite this four part. We have we must make a good relation with our government. Not only relation of course, but also we must know the direction from government about research focus, the priority of the research, and then the priority for the research funding from our government. And then we must also determine the funding body, not only from government, but also from other funders. For example, USA. Yeah. From this USA, for example, the smart city get about $3 million for 3 years. So we must looking for another funding body to give fund, and then our researcher can do the research until deliver the output. And also the university management also must set the KPI, must set the target. So by using the support from government and the funding body, the management, the university management starting to make a program to reach the target. And then also inside university we have many researchers. So this researcher in our university especially very in quality. So there is some researcher who, some faculty member who still not doing research but only doing teaching, for example. Some faculty member doing research and doing teaching simultaneously, and also some faculty member mostly doing research. So we must make a strategy how to make all these faculty members can get their goals. So by in this presentation, I'm going to present about the quantitative data collected from research database by using Chevron. The research landscape. Here we can see that Indonesia, in case of the publication numbers within the last 5 years, we still under Thailand. Yeah. And then, our country, the faculty member of university in our country is about 250,000 faculty members in Indonesia. It's about 4,000 university, from small into big, only teaching university until comprehensive university. So if we see the potential, yeah, if one faculty member can produce one publication, it means 250,000 publications should be produced if one faculty member can produce one, at least one articles. But here within 5 years we only produce about 50,000. So this data imply that our faculty member mostly still did not do the research. Maybe they do the research by they did not deliver the output. Most of university in our country still their main business still teaching, yeah, not research. And then if we see the trend of the publication, so this is good news actually, yeah. We can see that Indonesia increased in very high slope at this time within 5 years. So in 2016, actually, in quantity, we already passed the Thailand. Yeah. The overall quantity we still below Thailand, but in yearly, in the last year we can pass Thailand in quantity. Yeah. We still not talk about quality, but this is on the right track. So, but if we see the trend of the top quartile journal, we are decreasing. But if we talk about the absolute quantity, it's not decrease. This decreasing because of the quantity of the top quartile stagnant, but the total quantity is increased, so the percentage become decreased. So this is our homework now. The WCP program was launched to make this trend elevated. Yeah. So we want not only the quantity, no, we push the quality. So we're starting from big university, try to produce more and more top quartile journal. And then if we see the field-weighted station impact, yeah, now we can see that Indonesia, Malaysia, Thailand in the same level. And then if we talk about subject, we can see here this is low growth, low impact. This is high growth, high impact. High growth, high impact, high growth, low impact, and this is low growth, high impact. This is the existing. So by knowing this existing subject, so we know how to push. For example, this medicine, we already have high impact in medicine, but low growth. So how to shift this up? Yeah. And then here, engineering, material science, biotech here, yeah, we not so long. Yeah. So this is very promising to shift this, to push this into this area. So that's why we invite Professor Yohda and Professor Majid. We want to shifting chemical, biotechnology, mechanical into this area. And then now we talk about still Indonesia. If we make topics from we can categorize the topic from for example computer science, mathematics, all this field with different color, we can see that in case of Indonesia, everything exists. Yeah. Everything exists. So we our population is very high, 280 million with 250,000 faculty members or lecturers. And if we see the topics of the publication in this database, every field we have actually. But now we talk about UI, yeah, Universitas Indonesia. In case of UI, we can see here UI is comprehensive university. We have science tech, we have health medicine, we have also social humanity. If Indonesia just like this, the landscape, and this is the UI. we can see here, this is mostly about life science, medicine, and this is about science, engineering. Yeah. So we have many records here and here. Yeah. This is about the quantity. Again, this is about the quantity. And then if we compare, yeah, top 1% most prominent topics in our university, so we can see from this quantity, if we selected 1% of prominent topic, this become. So we can see this is medicine, this is material here, engineering. So the quantity decreasing, yeah. But now we know where is our strength. So we compare this with other university. We can see the comparison of the landscape of our strength compared to other university in Thailand, in Malaysia, in Taiwan. So if we divide the topics, so we can see here the computer science, mathematics, engineering here medicine, biochemistry. So Professor Yohda area in our university here, and Professor Majid here. So we have we cannot say strong, but we have good baseline to shifting from middle into how to achieve high growth, high impact for the publication. And then here the landscape of the scholarly output from 2020 increased. Yeah, we are on the right track. And then output of top station percentile, yeah, this is stagnant. And then publication in top journal percentile, this percentage. So this a little lower, the percentage, but the absolute quantity is not decreased, because this is the impact of this increase. We increase about 2 times. Yeah, this is also decreased 2 times. So it means the absolute quantity is almost the same, stagnant. And then this is field weight anticipation impact. Yeah, stagnant. Yeah, we want to increase this, but this and this need long time for working. So and then we analyze about the top publication. We can see we divide into international collaboration, national collaboration, and only institutional collaboration. Here we can see that the international collaboration get very big citation, yeah. And then only national collaboration, this very small, and only single authorship is the smallest. Yeah. So this data imply that international collaboration also may be one of the strategy to increase into high growth and high impact. And then the citation per publication also the highest here. So we in WCP program we invite some prominent professor. So we ask their assistants to collaborate with our researcher, and then we hope, yeah, by knowing each other, start starting to make joint publication together. This can bring our researcher and our institution into more and more high level. So, and then by this entry point, this can also open to others collaboration with other faculty members from both sides. So we hope this become snowball. Yeah, snowball. We hope. We hope. And then this is institution that's co-author the highest from other institution. But we believe that by this data, we believe that international collaboration will give high growth and high impact for the publication, for our researcher, and also for our institution. Here, UI by subject. Yeah. This is science. Yeah. Yeah, still science, social, humanity. Yeah, we have big population here. So how to shifting the researcher here, the research output here into this area? Yeah. Now in case of material science, the place of Pak Nofrijon and also from physics in department of in faculty of mathematics and science already in this area. Energy in this area, yeah. Physics in this area. So we must shifting every subject into this area. So we must make a strategy how to make this happen. And then, if we see more detail about every subject category, number of publication, number of citation, and field rated, we can see this point. And then, in case of engineering, we must increase this. We have baseline with these numbers. So now we are not blind anymore. Yeah. If now we have baseline, we have target, and then we have program. So by doing this, into 2017 we have this. Next year we will analyze again the newest data on 2018, and we hope this number will be increased. The increasing of this number also will give impact to our government strategy. The government will believe that this strategy, by push the international collaboration between our researcher and prominent researcher from foreign country, will boost not only the quantity but also the quality. So government will put more and more funding for this. And the government now believe this program is good and can give good result. Initially, the government only give WCP program, world class professor only. But now, next year, now the government now talking about WCR. Yeah. Here, in case WCP, P professor invited mobility only. Yeah. Now WCR is mean R is research. Yeah. World class research. The government will put priority not only invited the personnel, but also will put some research funding. Yeah. To deliver the research. I don't know, in our side only or base funding with our side, or for both sides can give. So this still discuss. But this is in good track from WCP. based on personnel. Next, WCR, based on activity, reason. And then this is our output. Our output with government trend is the same. Yeah. Now, Universitas Indonesia give publication output the highest in our country. Yeah. In 2017, about 2,100. Our faculty members only 2,000. So it means the ratio of the publication per faculty member now become 1, yeah, 1.05. Yeah. So we expect now the quantity already have ratio 1, but now the quality. Our university has program since 2 years ago to push the quantity. So every research funding from our university must deliver the article, yeah, although in proceeding level for the last 2 years. And this, the third years, not only proceeding, but now we have program proceeding and article journal. And maybe I let you know, starting next year, 2019, no more proceeding. All the PITA program, PITA, yeah, the output will be article, no more proceeding. Yeah. The funding will be increased. For example, now 90 million for 3 proceeding, next 120 million for 3 article journal, minimum Q4. Yeah. So no more proceeding next year. Yeah. So now we're preparing that. There will be PITA for articles, and then also for doctoral program, 1 article, yeah, for 60 million for a minimum Q3, and then the last by invitation. Yeah. Now we will invite the researcher who already has track record in Q2 and Q1 to apply, and this will be unlimited. Yeah, as long as they can deliver the result, we will be funding. Yeah. So no more proceeding. So proceeding only until this time. Yeah, this is vesting period. Of course, you can deliver the proceeding. Yeah, one researcher when they do research, sometimes cannot give good result. Of course. So we must have strategy. All the result can be published. So you can give if the result not so good to proceeding. If you have good result, please push it into more top quality journal. So for starting next year, our target is only journal article index in database. So this is the last of my presentation. This year, our ranking is 277 and decreased about 15 points into 2092 by next year. But in Indonesia, we still the best. Yeah. ITP Gajah Mada still below our ranking. So here we can see that to deliver this ranking, the criteria is academic reputation, and then employer reputation, faculty student ratio, station per faculty, international faculty, and international student ratio. Here, which point related to my unit? Yeah. This point, station per faculty. Here, if we see this, we have bad point actually for citation per faculty. So still 400, more than 400. But I think it's good start for baseline. Yeah. So we have many chance to improve this. So by our program from university, government program, and this WCP and next WCR and support from many funders. So next we must improve this. Yeah, our next target below 300. Yeah, below 300 for this. So this is not easy. This is not easy because this is not instant. Yeah. This long time and accumulative to give citation per faculty. But we believe by doing this, collaboration with prominent professor, prominent faculty member from our collaborators in the world, we believe we can improve this. Yeah, we already on the right track. The quantity is increased. Now the quality must increase in high slope also. Okay, thank you very much, and I hope we can do all together. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Please make a big applause again to Professor Heri. This is actually, Professor Heri just opened our view today. What is our baseline conditions? And we are today for that one, to answer the Professor Heri challenge today, actually. We invite a distinguished speaker from Japan, Professor Yohda. Please make a big applause, Professor Yohda. Let me just read a brief your CV, Professor. Please have a seat if you want. Yeah.
Thank you.
Professor Yohda is a professor from Tokyo University of Agriculture and Technology. His research field is biochemistry, molecular biology, biophysics, system engineering, environmental science. He has obtained a doctoral degree from the University of Tokyo since 1987, and also has been a professor since 2003 at TUAT. And here I read quite a lot of publication in Quarter 1. One of them I recognize here is just published in 2017 in Nature Publishing Scientific Report, right? Yeah. It's a very prestigious journal. And quite a lot of journal here, I cannot read it one by one. And also, as Professor Heri said, that Professor Yohda have a long time collaboration with us, with Professor Heri Group and also Dr. Shahla. And without further ado, I would like to invite you to give your talk. You have like 30 minutes, Professor.
Okay.
Okay. This is your.
Yes, thank you very much for kind introduction. So I've been, I firstly come to Indonesia in the occasion of my honeymoon about 35 years ago. And then, but after that, so I come back again here 2010 by the invitation from Dr. Saharan. He graduated from my laboratory. From that time on, I come Indonesia at least once a year. Recently, we come here twice a year. And I'm working at the vice dean of the Institute of Global Innovation Research in our university. It was also built the same concept of the WCP. Based on the budget from the METI,
we invite very many foreign professors to our university, and we increase the number of the international collaboration. So the budget is about $2 million a year. But I think recently we found only invitation from the famous professor is not enough for collaboration. They are very busy. So we decided to use our money to send our students to their laboratory. So that may what happened to you? Okay, again.
I think mine is corrupted.
Corrupted.
Yeah.
I think I'm not sure. I'd better. Or I might.
You can use your.
I think I'd better.
Do you have USB?
It's better to.
Oh yes, sure.
So Dr. Sahara asked me to give a talk here, but I think it's very difficult for me to give a general talk on the publication. So recently I have read various papers given from him because I have to help publishing papers. I have realized I should talk only from the research itself. The good publication depends on the good research. Before that, I want to introduce myself. I like this print. This print from ANA, Star Wars there. In print, they have this kind of door. Yohda is my friend. My name is very, so I'm from the Tokyo University of Agricultural Technology. Then it has only 2 faculties, engineering and agriculture. A relatively small university, even in Japan. So the world ranking of our university is not so high because of the volume of our university is not so big compared with the UI and other universities. But even though we have very active activities, so the number of publications and number of budget per faculty is very high, even compared with the Kyoto University or Tokyo University. The most famous professor, emeritus professor, is Professor Endo. He is the innovator of the biopharmaceuticals. He invented statin. It is used for the decrease of the cholesterol in our blood, in our body. And he has received various awards, including the Japan Prize, and Lasker Award, and the Gardner Award. He is expecting the Nobel Prize. His drug is the most world saved drug in the world. It reached about more than $20 billion. And so I should skip in detail. But anyhow, Yohda is the, even in Japan, Yohda, but only my family have this name. And even in the world, YOHDs are very unique. So you can find my publication in PubMed by citing YOHDAM. And I found maybe there is a 284 publication in PubMed, but only one exception. It is not mine. It is mine. I have realized about 7 years ago. So I found it's a contamination in my database. But I have realized it is related to me. On the day, my son gave a call to me. he used to be a doctor course in Hokkaido University. He has published a paper. His name is Masaki Yohda. So his publication is contaminated my database. And anyhow, but he moved to the chemical company. So he will not publish so many. So I'm very happy with it. So at first, I tried to make this presentation by thinking of how should I do in Indonesia? How should I give the make the good publication in Indonesia? So especially in the field of the biotechnology, so there's some difficulty to do research in Indonesia. I think there is some limitation in access to the advanced instrument. And also in biotechnology, we have to use the raw materials and the reagent with the rubber for the easy to the process. So we have to keep it and send it by the cooling system. So about 10 years ago, when I just came to Indonesia, the situation was very bad. I think it's very difficult to do biotechnology in Indonesia. I think there is a significant improvement in the field, but there is still some difficulties, I guess. So in this condition, what I should do? Anyhow, so I have to tell one thing. The brain is the most important tool in science and research. So we have to use brain a lot before doing the experiment. So I have to tell the two examples of our how the thinking makes the innovation or new findings. Dr. Peter Mitchell and Dr. Paul Boyer, they are both received the Nobel Prize, and they worked on the same field as I. I know them well. Do you know Peter Mitchell and Paul Boyer? I think Peter Mitchell received about Nobel Prize in chemistry about 40 years ago. He made the idea of the chemiosmotic theory, how ATP is synthesized in our body. ATP is a kind of the point for the energy in our body. We use the energy by the shape of the ATP. So all our we eat for food, and the energy is converted to the energy of ATP, and the chemical reaction is mediated by using the energy of ATP. So, he made this theory, chemiosmotic theory. It is very curious theory, even now. So ATP is synthesized in mitochondria. Mitochondria is covered of the membrane. So by using our energy, by oxidizing our chemicals, so on the mitochondrial membrane, proton is transferred from the inside to outside. That makes the difference of the proton concentration. Using the proton concentration, the proton comes back to inside of the mitochondria. The energy, using this energy, ATP is formed, ATP is synthesized. It's like a kind of the power system using the waterfall. So then he used to work for the university, but he kicked out from the university, and he made their own research institute, Green Research Institute, and he worked with only one assistant, Moy, and he has only a couple of the instruments. But he led all. But in the world, in the world, the field of the ATP synthesis is very hot topics. So many researchers working on this subject. So they produced many papers on it. So he read every paper, and then he got the idea of the chemical theories. And using a very small, so simple experiment, a simple instrument, they proved the idea. So I think the thinking the most powerful, this is the very good evidence for the thinking the most powerful tool in the research. Another one is Paul Boyer. He received 20 years after the Peter Mitchell. He was a competitor of the Peter Mitchell. He tried to get the Nobel Prize in the ATP synthesis, but he failed to do it. But anyhow, he has succeeded to get the Nobel Prize. Why? He worked on the F1ATPase. It synthesized ATP, and he found I don't tell the detail. He found the asymmetry in the protein. So based observed by any method. So by thinking of the secret mechanism of the F1ATPase based on the asymmetry, he got the idea it should rotate, and that should rotate by the ATP synthesis. It was experimentally proved by other groups. Japanese group proved this mechanism, proved the rotation of this his idea. So based on this observation, Paul Boyer received the Nobel Prize. Even though Japanese group have succeeded to observe the rotation by using the very sophisticated method, they failed to receive the Nobel Prize. The first idea is most important for the Nobel Prize. So thinking is the most important for getting Nobel Prize. I also worked on the F1ATPase maybe about 30 years ago. So I made this kind of paper. So in our paper, so this enzyme can synthesize the bound form of ATP only. And so this was based on the other papers from other Japanese researchers. So dimethyl silver oxide, a kind of the chemical, have the effect of the ATP synthesis on the ATPase. So, but no one had the idea how the ATP is synthesized by the effect of the MSO. But I used to be a chemical engineer based on the idea of the equilibrium of the chemical reaction. We saw the existence of this kind of the chemical or solvent has the effect to change the equilibrium on the enzyme. So I have this kind of to prove it, I use the various kind of the organic solvent. Solvent can synthesize about the ATP on the enzyme itself. So from this experiment was achieved by a unique enzyme. So we work on the protein from the sulfate bacteria. The protein from the sulfate bacteria is very stable compared with others. So we can do various things using using the sulfuric enzymes because it is very stable compared with other proteins. If we work on the proteins, we have to mind about the instability of it. But if we use the sulfuric enzymes, we don't mind about it. They are very stable, they are tough. You can do anything on it. So this is the landscape of in Japan. It is the area of the hot spring in Akita Prefecture. So in this area, so there are many small pores that have the hot mud. This is very dangerous. It is about 90 degrees Celsius. and pH is 1. Very if we put the hand or foot, we are severely injured. But even though many bacteria grow on this hard condition, severe condition. So, as I mentioned previously, protein from something bacteria don't denature at high temperature. So, every body thinks proteins are denatured by high temperature, like the milk or some egg. But the protein from the something bacteria does not denature, stable even at high temperature. So therefore there is high conditions, high temperature. There's bacteria. My laboratory about 20 years ago in UAT. So in the beginning, we had my laboratory had nothing, only a small instrument, only a few instruments we have. So in such condition, like do in Indonesia, I decided to do work on the proteins from the sulfides, because just the end of it was the Human project has ended in 2000. So almost on the same time, so genome sequence of the various bacteria have been published. So we can access the data of the genome sequence of the sulfate bacteria. So using this information, we can make many kind of any kind of protein from E. coli. And as I mentioned, it is very stable. We can easily to express and purify in E. coli, and so even for the even for the undergraduate student, they can do research by themselves. So I selected this theme and I continue with this kind of project, and so Professor Dr. Saharan joined this project. So this is my background and some kind of the thinking of the researches. And so I give some comments on the scientific doing research and scientific writing. So I think most importantly, before start the research, so we have to read the related manuscript with as many as possible and think. Yes, so we can do reading anywhere. So, and moreover, we have to think on it. So, based on this, using reading manuscript, we have to know what should we do next. So, what should we do next to give the additional information on it. So to make the impressive manuscript, we have to give the additional information, additional new information. We have to know what is necessary to what we can add to the previous publications. And moreover, many research depends on the various resources and the instrument. So we have to make the research plan based on your experimental conditions, what you have, and what you can do. And you have to think about the advantage and disadvantage. For example, I have read the Saharan's paper, so he has an advantage in working on the Indonesian propolis and honey. So it is advantage. So no other people can do only. But so I think that there's some disadvantage on the instrumentation or something else. So by defining the advantage and disadvantage, so you should make the research plan, and if necessary, you need the access the advanced technology instrument. So you ask the world-class professors for the collaboration on this subject. I think it's important to do it before doing research. And so, after getting some result on the experiment, you have to think on the result in detail. So, experiment result tells the truth. As in some cases, the result is different from the your expectation. So, but generally, the result tells the truth. We have to think and write a paper on the result. And anyhow, so we have to write a manuscript. I'm also the native speaker, unfortunately. So we have many difficulties in making writings. But I recommend you to think and write in English. It's not good to think in Indonesian and translate to English. It's very, you have to think in English. And so we have difficulty in finding the expression or sentences or phrases. So nowadays, it is getting easy. We can find many sentences, phrases by internet. So to if you find some sentence or phrases, to search in the web, so there should be there should show related sentence or phrases. So by combining them, so you should make your own expression and sentence phrases. So of course you cannot use the same one, but by combining many expressions and sentences, you can make your own expression and sentence. And finally, you have to be logical. Logic is most important. Logic is not depend on the language, but I think in case of Japanese is not good for the logical thinking. So I recommend our students to think in English, to be logical. So I'm not sure about the Indonesian, but I think it's better to think in English, to be logical. So finally, so if I give the answer to my question at the beginning, if I'm a researcher in Indonesia, what I will do. So I think the advantage of Indonesia is natural resources. So we should use the national resources for researches. I envy you. You have so many islands and so many researches. So among them, my favorite is the something bacteria and their protein. So the advantage of this the research is the compared to other universities, you have most rich in the volcanoes. So I think the Thailand has no volcano. So you can only access the sulfuric bacteria. So I think so you can. I think there should be lots of the novel enzymes that can be used for the in cell application. So the problem of it is you have to compete with Japanese research. We also have the volcanoes, and we have some people love onsen. Okay, thank you very much for kind attention.
Thank you, Professor. Then you can just thank you. Please big applause again to Professor Yohda. Thanks so much. Your experience is really useful for us. And last but not least speaker, we would like to invite Professor Majid Beidaghi to have your presentations. You're in Apple, yeah? Using this Professor Yohda. You have two?
No,
This is mine.
yeah, that's use the make sure my laptop doesn't die.
Okay. Later, Professor Majid, please briefly introduce yourself, maybe. But
Sure,
I didn't get your CV, so
Yeah,
sorry.
yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't know you wanted, but,
Okay.
but sure.
Yeah.
No problem. Yeah. Just a second.
Yes. You also have 30 minutes to explain your work here today. Your title is Choosing the Right Journal and Communication with Reviewers. So after this, we will have a question and answer from the audience for three presenters.
Okay, thank you very much for the introduction. My name is Majid Beidaghi. I'm an assistant professor of mechanical and materials engineering in Auburn University. Auburn University is a medium-sized university in the state of Alabama, in the U.S. So we have about 30,000 students, including undergraduate and graduate students. The engineering is one of the major colleges of Auburn University. Auburn University is usually known as a technical university. So this is our engineering campus, and here we have the building that my lab is in this building. I started my lab like only 3 years ago in 2018. We have established a good lab. I think I have several students working in research and publishing already. So in the U.S., college football is very important. So this is our stadium. So the university has about 30,000 students, but we have a stadium that can, with a capacity of about 100,000 people, which is even more than the capacity, the population of the Auburn, the city. So, we did a workshop on writing paper on last Tuesday in the Department of Materials Engineering. I wanted to change the subject to mainly choosing the right journal and communication, the topic that was selected for me, and I was informed about it yesterday. But I thought maybe I just go over the writing part also quickly. We don't have the 2 hours that I had in Tuesday, but maybe I can just quickly go over this. So first, I want to talk about the strategy to writing papers. And this is very different from, I believe, in engineering fields, or different from other fields, maybe science and medicine. So the usual model for writing paper is that you have an idea, you read about it and generate the idea, then you do the research and you write the paper. This is what most people usually basically follow. But my idea of writing paper to write good papers and write as many as possible, I prefer this model. I have an idea, I prepare a very detailed outline of a future paper that I may be able to write on this idea even before I do the research. And then I use that outline to guide my research. So I can exactly produce the data that I need to finally go and finish and write the paper. So what I want to talk about here is obviously this last part, after you have done the research and you want to write the paper. For me, this starts with a first draft. And the first draft is something for me that I start writing about everything that I have done. Writing the first draft for me and my students is start about when you are done with 80% of the research, not after you are finished with research. Because I think many times when you write a draft, you start writing draft, you understand that there are maybe something missing in your paper that you want to go back and do additional experiments. So as soon as you can start writing the first draft, that would be very helpful. So I can usually for me what it takes for writing first draft is I will do it in a weekend when that I can just focus on writing a draft, because I think this is the most the part of the paper that you have to be critical and think about what you have done, and you have to be clear about the ideas that you have generated in your paper and your reasoning. So I start by reviewing the literature before writing the draft, and read the notes about the literature that I have read before. And then I mentioned I have an outline before even doing the research, so I start with that outline and rearrange the figures and basically tables of my research. We can talk about the figures. Figures have certain quality, but I would try to produce publication quality figures. We put them in order, and then you start writing the draft. So before all of this is obviously an important step is selecting your journal that you're submitting to. I will talk about that later, but that happens obviously before you write the draft, because you want to determine who is your audience for the paper, and always remember that the most important audience is obviously the reviewers of the paper. So we have to write for the reviewers. So this is very important. And as I said, writing the first draft is the creative part. At this stage, I usually don't care about editing and trying to make the best English, best sentences, nothing. I just want to put the idea on the paper and my reasonings, my logics, and explain my experiments. So that happens usually after the first draft is done and during editing. I think any paper should tell a story, and this is very important for publication of paper, especially in high-impact journals. And I think a paper, a scientific paper, engineering paper, follows a classical story in terms of tension and time. So you first, in any story, you have some introduction, so you introduce the ideas, opening scenes, and then you have conflicts, right? In your research paper, you mention the problems that you have in this research, or other people may have in this research. And then there is a climax, which is your idea, your work, and what you have done, and then supporting the idea with your data. So the steps are like this usually in a paper. Here is a problem. It is an interesting problem. You should tell the reviewers or readers that this is an interesting problem. We should provide support for that. It is an unsolved problem. Nobody else maybe looked at it, or maybe they have looked at it, they don't have the answer, or maybe they have used a different method to reach the answer compared to you. And the climax is obviously here. Here's my idea. And you explain what you have done, and then you will support it with your data if you're doing an experimental research publication. Then obviously it is very important to compare your research with others, and there are rules for that. We'll talk about that. So we all have in any field of research some competition, and we have to acknowledge the competition and the work that they have done, because that is very important. I find it very important in acceptance of the paper. So the steps that follows in writing the first draft of the paper, I review the outline and make the update the outline, then write the method section, because that's the easiest part of any paper to write, because we have and explain your reasoning or rationale for everything, or explain your results and data. Next step is writing the introduction. So I don't write the introduction at the beginning, never write the introduction at the beginning, because I think it's the most difficult part of the paper to write. It takes a lot of time. So, and maybe if you start with the introduction, you're discouraged to continue writing the paper. So, and this is the way I write the introduction. I tell my student to write the introduction is first write the last paragraph of the introduction. That is where you're explaining what you have done and the main messages of your paper and the concepts that you have used in your paper and what are your results actually in that paper. And then when the last paragraph is done, you look at what is written there, circle the most important words and concepts, and in the preceding basically paragraphs of the introduction, you try to introduce those concepts. Each paragraph should introduce one new concept or idea that is related to your paper, and with a very nice transition between the paragraphs. Usually different journals have different format, but I think introduction should be about like 5 or 6 paragraphs, no more than that. Sometimes if you're writing a communication or a very a journal that with page limitation, obviously 3 or 4 paragraphs is enough for introduction. Next step is writing the abstract, and also I have to mention writing the conclusion part, because I didn't put it here. Many journals have a different conclusion section, so after you are done with the introduction and resulting discussion, you can write the conclusion and the abstract. So usually the abstract should answer these 4 questions or 4 statements. State the problem, say what is interesting about the problem, say what your solution achieves, and say what follows from your solution. Meaning that now that you have done something and you have found a solution for a problem, what now? What somebody else can get from this solution and do in the future. Then once you have the abstract, you look at this, find the important concepts and word in your abstract. I usually do that, and to come up with a very good title about the paper. So the process of writing paper is exactly like almost reverse. The title comes at the end, and it's we should know writing these papers that the title and abstract are the most important part of the paper that readers read, and maybe whoever looks at your paper, the first thing they read is the title, and maybe if the title is interesting, then they will read the abstract. So these are very important. So, and then we organize the references, and then the paper is done. I will mention this later, but if you have targeted a journal, you have to make sure that you're referring to some of the papers in that journal, because for many editors, this is a sign that your paper is, appropriate for that journal. Now, revising the manuscript. I think to become a good writer, you need to become a good editor. So, usually editing what you have written yourself is difficult because you know the words, especially after you have written the papers. So it is much easier, I think, to edit other people's writing. So, but you have to find a way to edit your writing as well. So you have to find a way to basically erase the memory of what you have written. And to do that, there are several tricks. And one is, just listening to paper. Ask somebody to read it for you. So that will change your idea of, change the way you look at the paper. Or just stop after you stop the first draft. You can wait for a week or something, a few days before you go back and edit the paper, so that you can see the problems in your writing, or if there is any flaws in your arguments and so on. Obviously, another way is to ask somebody else to edit your paper, a friend, a lab mate, and so on. And also, I think whenever somebody asks you to edit their writing, you have to jump on the chance, because that's the best way for you to improve your own writing. So you have to take the chance. My students and I use this software Grammarly. And I learned that your university library provides the software access, so I think it's a very good resource. I would use it. I always use it, it's if you're using this software for scientific writing or journal writing, you have to be careful, because there are some suggestions from the software that are not appropriate for scientific writing. For example, if you write the paper in the third person language, the Grammarly software doesn't like it, but usually we have to write the paper in the third person language, because that's how the research is done. Okay, so this was about the writing. Quickly now, submission of the paper. So this is the difficult part, submission and getting the acceptance. So this is the beginning of the difficult part. Usually we have this process for any journal. When you submit the paper, it goes to the editor of the journal, and they look at it. They decide if this paper is appropriate for the journal. If it is not, the paper will be rejected right away. And editors do several things to decide about that. First, they definitely read the title and abstract of your paper, your cover letter, which is very important. It should exactly and clearly highlight what is important about your paper. Even if it's not clearly explaining the point in your paper, you have to make sure to clearly explain it in the cover letter. The other thing is the quality of figures and tables. The editors don't usually, for this first section, first basically decision, they don't have time to read your paper. Definitely they will not do that. So title, abstract, looking at the quality of the figures. So if your figures are low quality, small fonts, small lines and things like that, then that will have a negative effect on the editor in deciding if your paper is good. Another thing that I already mentioned is obviously referring to papers in the journal that you're submitting to, because that's important. That shows that your paper is related to that journal. So assuming that editor, you pass the editor, then the reviewers are assigned. They'll review your paper, either rejected or they ask for revision, right? It's very rare. I will mention that the papers get accepted as is. I have never had that. So usually you either have minor revisions or major revisions. Major revision is more common. But anyways, so after the revision, I will talk about the revision in a few other slides. So after maybe one or two rounds of revision, the paper gets published. Now about choosing the right journal. There are a few things that you have to look for. So is the field of research listed in the journal website? This is the first clue if your paper is related to this journal. Do you find any related publications in the journal? Any publication in your field that is published in the journal? When you're reviewing the literature, that is the information you get. Are you citing the paper? I have mentioned it several times. Are you citing the paper in that journal in your own publication? That is also important. You don't like to shoot too high, meaning that if you don't think your paper is very high impact, you don't want to submit it and spend time on formatting your paper to a special journal format and then send it and get the rejection. But you don't also want to underestimate your work. This is something that happens. I have seen very good papers published in low impact journals because maybe the authors didn't think that the paper will be accepted in a higher impact journal. So this is a very important decision to make, what kind of journal you want to select to send your paper. And remember that impact factor is important. We just heard a talk about the data and impact and how it affects the decisions. But in many cases, there are so many journals that maybe have low impact factor in some fields, but they're very prestigious. For example, in my field of, I've worked on batteries and supercapacitors and so on in my research, and in the field of electrochemistry, you can publish your paper in journal. We have the journal Energy and Environmental Science. The impact factor is 30 right now, but there is journal of the Electrochemical Society. Impact factor is about 3-4, but it's a very prestigious journal. Actually, publishing that journal is not that easy, but the impact factor is not that high. So in many fields, maybe there are some exceptions. So impact factor is not everything. And also choose a journal that can promote your work. You have to select a journal that people read, right? Otherwise, you are not going to get citation for your papers. So that's very important to select a journal that you know that people in your field regularly read. And there are nowadays a lot of open access journals. Some of them are very good, but some of them are not good. So you have to be very careful if you want to submit your paper to any open access journal. So before submission of the paper, again, the most important readers are the reviewers. You should try to address their comments before even concerns before even you submit your paper. And it's easy, you know. All of us, when we do a work, we know the weaknesses of our work compared to other papers. So we have to acknowledge those. Even if you haven't done something that you think you should have done, but for some reason you can't do it, you don't have the time or you don't have the resources, you should at least acknowledge in your paper that this is something that can potentially help your research. Because when the reviewers read your paper, they know that you had to do that experiment or analysis. So if you haven't done it, they may think that you don't know about it, right? And that is much worse than saying that I know this experiment will help this, but I try to, explain my data or reach my conclusion in any other way. So again, the second point, acknowledge weaknesses of your approach or your work. This is very important. Give credit to others. If you have used any idea from any other paper, or if you have used an analysis method or data presentation with anything from somebody else's work, clearly mention that in your paper, because those people can be the reviewers of your paper. This is this point. And also be generous to the competition. You can be critical of other people's work, but don't just right away downgrade other people's work. Also, if you think somebody has done a work that and achieved a wrong result, you can very politely mention that in your paper, because again, the competition can be your reviewer. Okay, so let's say that you have submitted your paper and it has gone through the review process, and what are the review outcomes? The first one is that the paper is accepted as is. As I mentioned right now, it is a very rare outcome, especially for very good journals. It's very rare. I've never had it that the paper completely accepted as is. And that is because in most cases, reviewers are expert in your field. They have their own ideas. They just want to at least let you know some of their ideas. And they can't do it if they accept your paper. And you get something like that. And that is the best outcome that I think my papers, for example, when I submit a paper, can get. Usually, if my papers have 2 or 3 reviews, one of them maybe have this comment, but the others have asked for major revision. But even if you get the minor revision, just know that you have to address those minor revisions, send it back. In a lot of journals, the editors, even after minor revision, they send the paper back to the reviewers. So if you haven't addressed the comments at all, or part of the comments, that will be basically really bad. In most cases here, it's the changes are very easy. You probably don't need to perform any new experiment or new analysis, just answering some questions and clarifying some points in your paper. You can revise the paper. This is the most common outcome, I think, that the major revisions are required for your paper. This is when the reviewers have basically your paper, but they think it still can be improved a lot. And this is a very different range in this major revision. Sometimes the paper comes back with a major revision required, and the reviewer just asks for just a very small additional data or a very small experiment. But sometimes it comes back and the reviewer has asked for very many different experiments that needs maybe a lot of time. So I will explain how you can respond to that later. So after you get this revision, you usually in the response you have to provide point-by-point response. This is very important. Explain everything in your response. In many cases, you have a deadline to submit your paper after major revisions, and this is very important to know what the deadline is, because if the reviewers is asked for a lot of changes and you don't have time to meet or do those changes, do those experiments, then you need to communicate with the editor and ask them to give you more time for sending their revision. So, last one is papers rejected. So, hopefully this is not the outcome you get, but if you get that, don't lose your hope. Papers all get rejected all the time. It happens to everyone. So, you need to just revise it, use the reviewer's comment, why they have rejected your paper. A lot of time it is a very simple thing. Maybe you have selected the wrong journal. So you can just send your paper to a different journal. But sometimes you can just use the comments to improve your paper. And sometimes, and this is very common now, that the editors ask you after the rejection, ask you to submit your paper to another journal in that publisher's portfolio of journals. This means that they will automatically transfer all your papers filed to that journal, and then if you respond to the reviewers, then that will also be included in your submission. That is very helpful in getting the paper submitted. If you are if you get this suggestion, definitely consider it. I don't know how much time I have. I have some tips about.
5 minutes.
Okay. Some just tips about responding to reviewers. Always listen to what the reviewers say. They are probably experts in your field, so they have something. Either there is something that you don't know, or there is something that you haven't explained very well in your paper. That's why they don't understand your point. So in either case, this is your job to address the comments. Do not ignore any comment. It happens for me when I review papers that I have, for example, 10 comments about the paper, and the authors come back and they address 7 of them, and you just forget about 3 other comments. So this is very bad. So just try to address all the comments. You should always be polite and respectful. This is, I think, is a no-brainer, but believe me, I have reviewed papers, and people sometimes can be very rude in responding to reviewers. That definitely kills the paper, and the reviewer will not read your paper. So like I said, maybe you think that they don't understand your point, but a lot of the time problem is that you haven't explained your point very well. So just accept the blame yourself and try to improve your paper. If you think this is common, this is not common, but it happens. If you think that the reviewer clearly is not an expert in your field, and it is completely off from the comments, this is you don't get into a fight with the reviewer in these cases. You just respond to the reviewers politely, and maybe send a letter to the editor mentioning that you think that this reviewer does not understand your field. If the reviewer fails to understand something, again, apologize for not making it clear, and try to revise the text. Make sure that your response to reviewers is self-contained, so meaning that you put the reviewer comments, your response, and then so we have 3 components in any response. 1, the reviewer comments, your response to that comment, and third component is the changes that you have made in your paper in response to that comment. Put all the information in the response, and don't refer the reviewers to your manuscript, revised manuscript. First of all, you do that because it's easier for the reviewers to review. And second of all, if you refer everything to your manuscript, that means that the reviewer goes back again, reads your manuscript, maybe finds more problem in your manuscript. So try to have a self-contained response. Respond to any point and all the points, and maybe have a structure in response that is easy to follow, right? So they can easily see the changes that you have done. So if you cannot, if the reviewers ask for an experiment that you, for some reason, you cannot do, or you don't have time, you don't have the equipment, that happens to me as well, you can respectfully explain to the reviewer that this is not possible for you and you don't think that this will affect the main conclusions of your paper. But remember, if the reviewer asks for like 10 different things, you cannot say that for 9 of them, right? So you can just select maybe some of the more difficult comments for you to do and explain your reason why you can't do them. So that's sometimes, many times that works. And basically you can just mention if they have asked for too much new information or new experiment and you think it's not related to your paper, you can mention that in your response. And again, if the reviewer is not reasonably as like completely off and they ask for some information that are not even relevant to the paper, again, you don't get into the fight with the reviewer in your response. You respond to the reviewers and send a letter to editor, a separate letter explaining that you don't think these experiments are required. So some example of the responses and how you should basically word them. If what you want to say is you just didn't understand it, what we wrote, you say several statements that we have made were more ambiguous than intended, and we have adjusted the text for this. So the point is, you have to know how to word or how to talk to communicate with the reviewers. So obviously the second one says basically the first one, but it is more polite and more respectful. Another example, no one knows the answer to your question. Right? You want to say that, but what you say is, this is a valid question and we are actively pursuing the answer in our lab, right? Or this is a valid and important question, however, we are unaware of any studies that have answered this question, right? So you say what you mean, but in a very polite way. What you want to say is the experiment you're suggesting would take forever, but what you say is the suggested experiment is interesting and would provide additional information about blah blah, but we feel that it falls outside the scope of this work, right? Politely answer the reviewers. So what you want to say, we are not saying we prove anything, that's just our hypothesis, but what you should say is we agree that this explanation is speculative at this time, and we have edited the text to state that our conclusion is only suggested by our results. What you want to say, you didn't even read what we wrote. What you should say, we did not intend to indicate blah blah, and we have therefore altered the text to specify this, right? What you want to say, you are being so picky about grammar or formatting. What you should say is, we apologize for this error and we have corrected text to basically refer to your comment. So basically this was what I had, so I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you so much. Professor Heri, and also please have a seat here now. We already finished now. Please have a seat here.
Okay, yeah.
Okay. Again, please make a big applause to 3 speakers, our distinguished speakers. It was very useful and very motivating speech from all the persons. We have 3 question and answer. I open 3, 1, and the other one I open for students, maybe PhD student, or any others want to ask anything? Okay, maybe Pak Wahidin and this other one. Okay, so Dr. Ardiansa, would you please ask?
Thank you, Professor Hermansyah, Professor Yohda, and Professor Majid. Just use your first name. So, my question is about researcher performance metrics, because I think that encompasses all 3 presentations.
Professor Heri mentioned in the beginning that we are trying to get more impact of our publication as a result of our research. But I have experience with Lorenzo Cremasi, I think it's your college in Auburn, that his performance is determined by probably not the impact factor or even not the Scopus index. I mean, the special case in Indonesia, one of the advantages that Professor Yohda mentioned earlier, that it is hard to get fired as a researcher in Indonesia, even if you're not publishing anything. Is that correct, Professor Hermansyah? So it's easy for us to stay in the tenure. Unlike in the US, for example, if you don't have any research or any publication, then you may get fired at the end of the term. So my question would be back again: how does your institution measure your performance as a researcher? Let's take in the Auburn University or in the TUAT institutions. How do you get? Is it going to be like a reward based on what? Based on that metrics or anything different? Is the publications, for example, in Indonesia, is really heavily into Scopus index, or not only Scopus but ISI also, but at least it's international index publication that count toward even your incentive. That's really heavy because if you want to apply for research, they will ask you that index. For example, even in the government level on that. So, yes, please share your experience. And how do you think the ideal one to really get the researchers being more productive? And I think my question is not only for academic impact, but it's beyond that. For example, what would be the performance metrics ideally make your research impact toward academic? For example, the community engagement and so on. Thank you.
Okay, I think one question should be answered first.
Yes.
Yes, that's right. Okay, please.
Professor from you. Or Professor Yohda first. Senior first. Please. Please.
Okay, so in our university, so we are relatively small national university compared to Tokyo University. So we have to be supported with companies, some others. So we depend on the research project with the company. So for that purpose, we need the innovative research, so to be attractive for the company. So based on this idea, so we invite the young researchers as the faculty members by finding who have the ability to make the innovation in the research in each research field. But so even though they need publication to advance the researches. So the innovation depends on researches. So we have the balance between the research papers and some idea of the research for the collaboration with companies. So we have much emphasis on the H index or some the citations. But the citation the index increase with the age. Yeah. But so for the average young researchers, we have to examine the research in detail. So so we have most of our young researchers are hired as the tenure track researchers. We are evaluating in 5 years of them. So we selected as the tenure members of it. Maybe they are very young, maybe 30 to 40. So citation is not so high as usual. So we evaluated the performance and the impact to the science and also the industry.
So in the U.S., first of all, the bad news is also the U.S. The number of publication and impact factor is very important. Nowadays, H index is becoming more and more. I think it's better than number of publication at least, but the other factor is how much funding you can get. In the U.S. we have like outside funding. You mostly bring your funding from outside sources, and usually if you bring funding from National Science Foundation or National Institute of Health, that is considered prestigious. So if you get funding from those sources, because they are reviewed very well by other scientists in the field. So these are basically the criteria. But the number of publications is still important at our university. But I think in maybe top 10 universities, the number is not as important as what you have done in the field. If there's somebody is doing really good and innovative work, but they cannot produce, maybe because of their field, they cannot produce the number of publications. And also, in some fields, like in material science, we can easily publish in a journal with impact factor 4 to 5. And if you are good journals, the impact factor 30, right? But in computer science, or you publish in conference papers, the impact factor is low. So if you just have impact factor to compare, it's not fair, right? So I think there are other factors that people look at.
Professor Heri, you have a point. Please.
Thank you. Okay. Every time I go abroad and visit some university, I always interview some of the faculty members that I met there. I usually asking impolite question. How much is your salary? How you can get your research funding, and then how you manage the research funding, and what is the output of that funding, and then what is your KPI? We face difficult situation here in Indonesia, different with outside. I found out also that in USA, the KPI usually how much external funding you can get. If your external funding below your yearly salary, you must prepare to be kicked out after your contract. Yeah. But here in Indonesia, after you're admitted as a faculty member, you usually can work a lifetime. Yeah. You don't worry even you perform or not perform to be kicked out. Yeah. But we also know that the salary is very low here. So government and university not only provide the salary, but also provide the research money, the research funding. And one difficult situation is the research funding not managed by university. The university have contract with faculty members, and then the research funding managed in your pocket, managed in the pocket of the faculty members. So it is some kind of we must change this actually. Yeah. So because the money goes to your pocket, so we must control with different way. Yeah. You can manage your money, you can manage the research money, but you must deliver the quantitative output, like that. So in our university now very hard. Yeah. If you have contract with my unit, for example, and you must deliver certain output. If you don't deliver certain output, the money must return, right? Yeah. But of course not in 1 year, but in 2 years.
It's spent.
Yeah. So we change this become output based. Output based, because we already learned that if we only give money without tied into output, there's no result. So maybe in the future, maybe in the future you will no longer manage the research funding in your pocket. The research funding will be managed in university. But to reach that situation, of course, the others thing must be improved. For example, salary for the faculty members, the infrastructure for the research, and the research money can also used to purchase the investment for research equipment. For example, the research money in our country cannot be used to purchase the investment, for example, analytical device, but only for expendables. Yeah. And also now, the research money also cannot be used for conference, for example. The research money from government, from our university still can be used to attend conference. So something have to be managed.
Compromise.
The beginning so many things have to be fixed between our government policy and our university policy and our target. So we must compromise between the existing policy, the target, and how the way to reach it. So we understand that of course, if in Japan and USA, the KPI, for example, external research funding, and after you do the research, I usually asking that impact is important in also in USA, the impact of the research. So, but you write qualitatively in the report, they never mention after the research funding used for the research, how many publication is not the target. But maybe in Japan, atarimai.
Yes.
It means if you do the research, there will be an output. There will be an output. No need to be request. But in our country, if we don't request it in the contract, you already received the research funding in your account. So it's difficult. To collect the result. So here we make a strategy. We give the research funding managed by every single researcher who get contract, but we tie the contract with certain quantitative publication, because we must control it. But in the future, again, if the salary of the faculty member already good enough, the research infrastructure already we can purchase by our research funding, because now the research funding only for expendable, not for investment. For investment is different funding, different budget. So and the research money managed by maybe certain unit in our university. So we can make it happen that you propose your research to university with certain amount of budget, and then we funding that according to your proposal. So we have different situations with that. In Japan and USA already established, managed by university. The researcher just asking, and the university proceed, and everything going on. But in our in Indonesia, no, that situation is not happen. So we must propose the budget, to government or to university, and then university approve, and then university or government have contract with the researcher, and then the research funding go to researcher account, and then after 1 year, you must deliver something if your research funding want to be continued, just like this. So this is about strategy, existing situation, and what the target that we must deliver with this existing situation.
Thank you, Professor Heri. And the second question, please.
Thank you very much. Firstly, I would like to thank all three good speakers. I think Professor Hermansyah, I usually call him Heri. You have revealed the baseline for all of the researchers in our university. I think that's a good starting point for new researchers in the university. Thank you very much. I think that's not a question. And also, Professor Yohda, I think your experience is, you explain your first paper, first research is really like me. When I came back from my study from UK, I have nothing, no money, no equipment, everything, nothing. So I just started whatever I think is possible. Yeah, that's the good point. Which means that we should never be afraid to start research. Is it right?
Yes.
Yes. Thank you very much, Professor Yohda. This is also not a question.
Okay. Question?
And I think Professor Beidaghi, I think, you have explained very clearly, systematically, how to write a paper and how to deal with the reviewer. That's very good for us. I think even I have several times attend such kind of seminar. I still enjoy it very much. One point I'd like to ask you to more detail. You say about the condition when you faced with your paper need some correction. Listen to the reviewer and blah blah blah. One of the points you say, try to make your response self-contained as much as possible. I don't understand about that point.
So
can you
I explain that a lot of times when you receive a comment, then you have to make some changes in your paper based on those comments, right? So there are three components to the to response. One is the comment of the reviewer. Second is your response, what you think about the comment. And the third is the changes that you have done in response to that comment. I said put that changes in your response when you're sending response document. Don't refer the reviewers to your paper. So go read my changes in the paper. Show them the changes in the response, because it's easier for them. They will appreciate it, and also that means that they don't read your paper again, find new problem. So.
Okay, thank you. This is great. Okay, one more question, just one more question because very limited time. Do you have one more question? No, one more question. Okay, otherwise let's make a big pause. So just a closing statement from you.
I first thank Professor Nafrijan for the invitation and everyone here. I really enjoyed my stay here. And I hope that what we have talked about will be helpful. We have already talked about research plan and collaboration, and hopefully we can do much more work together between Alvin and university.
Yes, I have found your papers are very advancing in these years. So I think you will publish more high quality journals a lot. So I would like to help them. Moreover, so your students are very great, and I think you should give them more chance to study abroad. please tell them come to Japan. Thank you very much.
To move forward, we must create our situation or treat our situation in uncomfortable zones. Yeah. Never treat our situation in comfortable zones. So, faculty members, students, yeah, if you are in comfortable zones, it means you are moving forward. Yeah. If you feel already in safe zone, you will not give any result. Okay, thank you very much.
Nice quote from Professor Heri. Now we enjoy, right? Now University of Indonesia is like top one because of publication, because of Professor Heri and other staff in the PM. Yeah? So to close today, I would like to give you, thank you so much for coming. I know this is holiday, right? Holiday, in your vacation, but you're coming here. Also, we are publishing on YouTube here, so you can also see later. If you can also refer our today's session to your friends. So we will distribute the link actually. Thanks so much for Nofrizon for having for organizing the session for the World Class Professor Program. Pak Wahidin, Pak Ardiansa, and thanks so much. Okay, I close. Thanks so much. Thank you. So for closing, please come forward. We have the photo session. Please come forward with the speakers here.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Oh, really? Yeah. So I'm an explainer. Oh, I just called you business guest.
Great.
Thank you very much.
Ya, ke depan dulu semuanya yuk, sebelum pulang. Yuk, semua yuk, biar rame. Semua ke sini. Coba lihat. Ya, Pak. Apa dulu? Ya. Ya. Ayo, semuanya yuk, semuanya. Karena penting. Bintang semua gitu. Ya, semua. HP ini ya.
Please come close.
Please come.
Coba lihat.
Okay. Is enough here? Cukup ya, is enough. Maybe a little bit like this.
Kemudian di atas. Miring.
Dia HP-nya pakai HP.
Oke, 1, 2, 3, sekali lagi.
Kamera Pak No.
1, 2, ya.
Sekali lagi nak.
1, 2.
Oke.
Thank you
semuanya.
Yes, I will send it to, I think the actually has it.
Udah nih.
Oh ya,
Ya.